Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of Warwick District Council Audit and Standards Committee on Tuesday the 18th of November 2025. Thank you for attending or watching online. I'm Councillor Richard Howes, Chair of the Committee. Please be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and will be uploaded to the Council's YouTube channel. Details of how the recordings are stored and how long they're retained for are available via the Council's website. Following on from actions arising at the meeting held on the 28th of October 2025, I can confirm that following a request from Councillor Phil Kohler at the last meeting, as Chair of the Committee, I've sent an email to all members reminding them to be mindful and show respect for all. Also, the Milton Homes update has been deferred to the ANS meeting in January 26 to allow for more in-depth updates. Are members happy with the emergency procedure? Does it need to be read out? Okay, thank you. I've been asked to remind councillors that when using mics, please do not place any equipment such as your laptop in front of the mic because this will affect the mic's effectiveness, and please remember not to turn away from the mic when speaking. I have here supporting from committee tonight, from Committee Service Officer Lola Brow. I have Head of Finance Andrew Rowlands, who will be here shortly. I have Audit and Risk Manager Mr Ian Davey. I also have other officers, and I want to thank members of the Cabinet for attending tonight. And I also have the Parish and Town representatives, Councillor Franklin. I think, and also officer I've got from Azets, I've got Mr Rees, so thank you for coming along. I think that's everyone on the list, I think. If everyone's happy with that. Excellent. Item 1 is apologies for absence. I'd like to welcome Councillor Collins to the committee, although he's not here yet, but welcome anyway. And we have received apologies from independent persons, Belinda Pike, Ray Tompkinson and Parish and Town Representative Councillor Marsh. Members, are there any other apologies at all? Councillor Melrose.
Councillor Russo is stuck in traffic and is going to get here as soon as he possibly can.
No problem at all. Moving on then, declaration of interest. Members, are there anything you need to declare relevant to the agenda tonight? No? Okay. Item 3, minutes. To confirm the minutes held of the meeting on the 28th of October, members, do I have any comments or questions at all on these? No? Okay. I have spotted that on the CGR item, there are 2 decisions that need amending on this. So it needs to be resolved that 1, the Audit and Standards Committee agree the terms of reference for the community governance review of the boundary between Lapworth and Rownton Parish Councils are set out in Appendix 2 to the report. And also the Audit and Standards Committee authorises Officers 2, Part 2. And therefore, for this be resolved that on Item 1, the terms of reference for the community governance review of the boundary between Lapworth and Rownton are set out in Appendix 2 to the report, be agreed that officers be authorised to. I'm therefore proposing as Chair that we approve the minutes with the change that I've outlined. Does that find a seconder at all? Thank you to Councillor Kate Dixon. All those in favour? That's unanimous, thank you very much. So item 4 is Part A, audit and items, the internal audit progress report. I believe, Mr Davey, I'm passing to you for this, is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Hopefully you've all had a chance to review the report. Quickly go through the highlights. Since the last meeting, since the last update report you got, there's been 3 new audits completed. One of those was the Milton Homes report, which was reported separately, as the Chair's just referred to, and you'll be getting quarterly updates on that one separately, so that's not actually covered by this report directly. So there were two other completed audits. The main point, as always, is the updates to the recommendations. Unfortunately, we hadn't received 6 responses relating to audits of corporate governance, highways assets inspections, housing repairs and maintenance, and loans to external organisations by the time I compiled the report. We've actually had 3 responses to those. So one was the housing repairs and maintenance, where they've agreed to review the risk register later this month. And then there's 2 responses that have been received in relation to the loans to external organisations recommendations, so that the loans policy is going to be reviewed by the time that the Treasury Management Strategy is revised in February 26, and the application form that relates to that as well will also be completed by that timescale. However, there are still 3 recommendations for which we haven't had responses to date. Again, there were 19 recommendations where we'd had revised target dates, plus those extra 3. So yeah, we're kind of getting into the same kind of situation as we were previously, where we're getting lots of revisions to target dates. the one caveat I will say with some of these is that because we're now moved to a more regular report to committee, some of the timescales by which we're reporting mean that there's not quite as much time at the end of the period to actually get responses through to me. However, I did try and give them as much chance to respond prior to writing the report, and still didn't get all the responses that we would like. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Phelps.
Just a couple. One, can we do anything to remind those 19+3 that they should be implemented ASAP? Can we as a committee actually pass that back? And the other one, is it right to talk about the leaseholder one now? Which only got a moderate. And I'm really concerned to see that, there's probably arrears on this. We need all the money we can coming in. And having known some leaseholders, I'm not sure how good we are working with our leaseholders. So I think this was one of some concern, and I know there's an action plan now, but I think certainly as an audit and scrutiny, we need to keep an eye on that one, because most of them aren't happening until 31/3/26. So my question is, Mr. Davey, will you be going back in then to see if those have been implemented?
Yeah, in the same way as we do with all recommendations, we'll be following those up again. So you should get a response to those when they fall due, as with all of the recommendations. But again, I'll try to encourage all people who are responsible for carrying out these actions to get responses to us, so that they can again be reported onto yourselves.
Councillor Syson.
Just on the leasehold report, I think it would be very useful if you could give us some idea of how many leaseholders we do actually have. Thank you.
Yeah, so the latest count, although it does change whenever we get right to buys and those kind of things, there were 610 leasehold properties.
Thank you. And that's one member of staff dealing with that.
Yeah, that's the one person who deals with all the leaseholder service charges actually going out. Obviously, there'll be people that help to provide some of that information to them. So, for example, where there's roof costs or windows or anything like that, that information will be provided by somebody in the assets team to enable them to pull those figures together.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Were there any other comments at all from the committee on these reports? No? Okay, in that case, I'm happy to propose some notes from the chair. If there's a seconder for that at all, please. Councillor Syson, thank you very much. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Davey. So item 5 is a statement of accounts. Just to point out to anyone watching this that actually there have been questions that have been submitted in advance, I think predominantly from Councillor Richard Dixon. So thank you for those, and obviously they're available for people to view, and I'm sure we'll probably refer to those as well during the meeting as well, but just to thank Councillor Dixon for those questions in advance. So the statement of accounts, also on the report. Mr. Leith, do you want me to go to you first to introduce it?
Was that one right?
Oh, so I started right, then I was going to be.
Hi, so AZETS, the Council's appointed external auditors, have submitted their annual report for the years ending 31st of March 24 and 31st of March 25, which was attached in Appendix 1. The report contains recommendations relating to the internal control, governance, financial stability, suitability, and improving economy, efficiency and effectiveness, and the management responses to these. We have Andy Reid, who has joined us from AZET, who's going to go through the report for us now.
Thanks very much, and yes, this does work. Excellent. Yes, thanks, Stephen, for the introduction. Just to say a bit of background to the reason we're bringing this to report to you now. So, as Stephen says, this is our auditor's annual report, which covers the 23-24 and 24-25 financial years. We are now required from 24-25 onwards to formally present the auditor's annual report to the audit committee by the end of November for each year. This is a new requirement now because there was such a backlog of auditors not issuing reports because accounts were late being signed off. The National Audit Office have now changed the code of audit practice that we work under and required us to report to you in November or by the end of November every year. Even if there's nothing to report on the financial accounts audit, we still have to report basically the latest position on the annual audit. So what we've included in here is the value for money assessment. The accounts audit for 24-25 is not yet complete. We will be reporting to you on that by the backstop date for sign-off, which is next February 2026. But at this point in time, we have completed the value for money assessment. This includes detail for both the 23-24 and 24-25 financial years. And the scope of this is to look at the Council's arrangements for financial sustainability, governance, and arrangements to ensure economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. I think just the key messages from this. So, councillors may recall that in 2022-23, Grant Thornton, as the previous auditors, reported a significant weakness in the Council's arrangements for value for money, which related to arrangements for preparation of the financial statements and the capacity of the finance team. They also raised 11 recommendations for 22-23. So what we've done for the years since then is assess, first of all, for each year, were we of the view that the significant weakness previously reported remained in place, and we've also followed up on the recommendations that were previously raised and assessed whether there's any new recommendations to make. So I think that the key messages then, in terms of the significant weakness previously reported, for the 23-24 financial year, our view was that that significant weakness remained in place in relation to production of the accounts, capacity of the finance team. We reported that in the audit opinion that we issued for 23-24, which was issued back in February. However, for 24-25, we're now satisfied that there is no longer a significant weakness in relation to accounts production arrangements and capacity of the finance team. Clearly, there have been, over the last few years, significant delays in preparation of the accounts and sign-off of the accounts. For the current year, though, for 24-25, the Council has published its draft financial statements. They were later than the statutory date for publication of draft accounts of June 25, but this was largely a deliberate decision by the finance team to delay production so they could complete work around asset valuation, pensions information. So we're and we'd actually discussed and agreed that approach with the finance team beforehand. We're also satisfied that there's no longer evidence that there's significant issues with capacity of the finance team. We have now started the 24-25 audit process, and that is progressing. So overall, the assessment for 24-25 is that we're satisfied there's not a significant weakness in the Council's arrangements. We've also followed up, as I say, Grant Thornton raised 11 recommendations previously. The detailed report provides an update on all of these. We're satisfied that all but 2 of those have been cleared. So there's 2 now that we're carrying forward as relevant recommendations. We've also assessed whether there's any new recommendations to raise. So in total, we have now got 5 recommendations that we carry forward and make for 24-25. These cover, so there's accounts production arrangements, although as I say, we're satisfied there's not a significant weakness. I think there's still some more work to do to get back into the kind of the standard timescale of accounts production and the audit process, but as I say, we're satisfied it's not a significant weakness. The 2 previous recommendations that were carried forward relate to monitoring and delivery of the capital programme and assurance over key performance information that the Council uses. And then there's 2 new ones we've raised, which, to be honest, we've raised these for all of our clients, and they both relate to managing the impact of local government reorganisation, both in terms of financial sustainability and governance. So this is something we're raising for all of our clients. I think it's an area that councils are only now just starting to look at. So we're not saying that we think Warwick are behind where they should be on this, but I think it is an area of increased focus over the next few years as all councils move to potential reorganisation. And I think those are the key messages. So I say the overall conclusion is that there are now no significant weaknesses in the Council's arrangements, but we have got some recommendations that we've carried forward. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions at all from the committee? Councillor Syson.
So all sounds good, but you never know. Looking ahead, are you confident that you will be able to do a proper audit of our accounts for the years 25-26?
I think that all I'd say at the moment is we've started the audit process, so we're working closely with Stephen and the finance team. We're making good progress for 24-25. We've said all along that it's going to get to a fully remove disclaimers and to issue an unqualified opinion will take several years. I think, you know, we're in effectively our first year of doing that, and I think we are making the progress that we'd hoped to make. So far, I think it's been positive progress, but it will take a number of years before we can actually get to the position where we can actually issue an unqualified audit opinion. But you know, we've started down that route, and I think things are progressing as we'd hoped they would.
Thank you. So not for 25-26, but you are progressing.
Yeah, I think on one of the previous meetings that I came to when we talked about timescales for this, I think realistically it will be the probably 2027, 28 financial year before we can actually move to a fully unqualified opinion. It will take probably at least 3 years, because to get an unqualified opinion you need 3 years of effectively 3 years of balance sheet assurance. So it will be a long process. I think we've said all along it will take a number of years. We're now in our first year of the process of rebuilding assurance. So I think at this stage it's progressing, but I'm not sure we can really say much beyond that.
It's encouraging to hear you say that it is progressing with a smile on your face. So that gives us encouragement. Thank you very much. Rollins, I know you've just arrived, but it's not a question that's going to catch you out. We've heard about previous weaknesses due to lack of adequate staffing in the finance department, but it is believed now by the auditors that that has been overcome, and you have had several new members of staff. But bearing in mind the significant demands of local government reorganisation, will you have this year enough staff in post to cope with that and being able to cope with next year's audit?
It's a good question. Ultimately, it's tricky to say at the moment because we don't really know what the implications are of LGR from a resourcing perspective. We know there's going to be quite a lot of work involved. Our expectation is that the resourcing we've got at the moment is sufficient to enable us to meet deadlines going forward. The resource that we put in February as part of budget setting to bring in additional resource to the team has very much helped in terms of progressing the audit this year, but will have a bigger benefit next year when they have in effect those people, that person is in post for the full year. They came in June, didn't they? So in terms of the statutory deadlines, we should be in a better position. In terms of how LGR fits into that, it's probably one to keep on the radar, and we'll make an assessment on that. I know as part of budget setting, we'll be considering what the council does in terms of making provision for LGR as a council, but that will cover a multitude of service areas and how we integrate the council into any future decision on LGR.
Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Rollins. I'm slightly embarrassed now to look back, but it was true at the time. We did manage to change over our financial system without going belly up and without most people noticing what was happening, except, of course, on the assets side. Have we now sorted out our new financial and management system when it comes to assets?
Yes. So we've made huge progress on the system, working with our suppliers, Technology One, in actually getting the asset module back into a position where we can actually use it. There's been an awful lot of resource from both Technology One and ourselves that's gone into actually developing it over the last couple of years. To say it's absolutely perfect at the moment, it's still a work in progress, but we're very, very close to the finished product on this. I personally feel we're very, very close to it now. So we are still working with them. There's still elements that we're asking for advancements on and changes as the more we're getting into it and the more we're understanding the system, where we have a system that we can do our accounts with, and now we're asking for advancements to actually make it a better system and improve the accounts that we're doing. So it is going to be an ongoing progress that we're doing it, but we now have a lot more councils that are joining Technology One and using this element of the system, which is much better because there's more people actually wanting it developed, so therefore it becomes more of a priority with the system owner. There are a lot of network groups that we actually join now where it's multiple different councils all talking about the same output from the system. So they are starting to bring the developments that we're asking for and how we're wanting the system to work. So compared to where we started, yes, we're light years away from that now, and it's in a much better position.
Thank you very much. You've answered a question I might otherwise have asked, which was, when we invested in Technology One, it was relatively new and there weren't many other people using it. But now, yeah, we were guinea pigs in many respects, but no longer.
I think Technology One has been around for a while, but the new asset element of it, just for the financials, hadn't been. We were the first that went live with that. So for the rest of the system, that's why the rest of the system was embedded and worked fine and perfectly. It was the asset system which wasn't. It was very, very new. And yeah, unfortunately, we were the first ones to go with it.
Thank you.
To follow up on that as well, ultimately the asset test will be the audit that's ongoing. One of the challenges is because we haven't had an audit, a full audit since 21-22, we've not been able to ascertain what progress we've made in terms of the asset system. So the work that's ongoing at the moment will give us a clearer steer as to whether the work that we've put in and the changes that we've made do meet the requirements to complete an audit. Now we know that from what Andy has said from Rosettes that we're still expecting disclaimed accounts this year, but the steer in terms of recommendations will identify if there are still weaknesses within the processes that we've set up. We don't anticipate there to be any because of the work that we've put in over those years, but it would still be useful to sort of get a clean mark against it, shall we say.
Thank you. Let's hope all goes well. Thank you.
Councillor Davison, back to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to come in on your first question, Sydney, Councillor Syson, in terms of planning for local government reorganisation. As you know, we're not absolutely sure it will happen, and assuming it does happen, we're not absolutely sure what the date will be, and assuming it happens, we don't know whether it'll be one unitary or two. So there is a certain amount of planning that can be done now and a certain amount of gearing up. So more being ready for when we know more. But certainly talking to the Chief Executive today, my view, and I think his as well, it should be more about clearing the decks. So obviously what we're talking about here in audit terms, getting us progressing as quickly as possible is almost the best preparation we can have. So moving well, getting the systems we've got in place functioning as well as possible, so that when the storm comes, assuming it does, we're far better placed. So that's certainly my position on the generality of preparing at the moment, but it will gear up.
Thank you. So I had three short points, but Councillor Davison has covered. The first one is that the best way we can do LGR is just by doing a really good job, so we're in the best possible position, whatever happens. Clearly, the getting to a full disclaimed, not disclaimed opinion on the audit is a long and winding road, but we now have really, really clear milestones. So I think the last report that came to this committee was really excellent in laying out those milestones. And so obviously the next big one of them is making sure we hit the backstop date for the next year. And as Mr. Rollins says, that's an acid test. So yeah, I'd want us to keep making sure we're hitting all of those milestones. The third point I wanted to raise was one of the recommendations that's remained open is around capital slippage. And I think we are, as an administration, looking to kind of address that in a couple of ways in the run-up to the budget and the production of the next HRA business plan, because it mentions capital slippage in both HRA and general fund. On the HRA side, we're really working to try and bottom out the levels of investment we need in different areas of the very varying HRA to make sure that everything's not completely interdependent on each other, but we can actually assign values to the various different areas. And then on the other bit is, in terms of planning our capital spend, making sure that we get better at allocating our project resource and our delivery staffing for delivery and matching it against the delivery projects we're trying to do. So those are conversations we're having in the run-up to the budget in February. So, yeah, sort of glad that it's been raised, and we know that we need to have those plans in place on our capital programme.
Councillor Dixon.
Just think, going back to the systems that we use, the financial systems and LGR, have we any idea how compliant our systems are with any of the other councils that we might be grouped with and their systems?
I know that we're the only one using Technology One, and we have a quite wide range of different ones that all the councils are using. They are all cloud-based systems that we're all using at the moment, so the integration should be possible. It's just, I don't think it's been planned yet and looked into that way.
Ultimately, the systems are built to help us produce a statement of accounts that is quite generic across all councils, so the code applies to all councils, whether you're districts, boroughs, county, unitaries. So that shouldn't really change. What there will need to be is whatever system is decided upon as being the preferred system going forward for whichever option is decided upon. There'll need to be a lot of work that takes place as if similar levels really to when we integrated the current finance system that we've got. There'll need to be a lot of testing, a lot of recoding and mapping to ensure that all the services, because there'll be a lot of new services as well, integrating whichever option, there'll be county services, tier 2 services, and just making sure that they're mapped into the system. So in effect, it will just be a similar scenario to what we had when we implemented this system.
Councillor Richard Dixon.
Thank you, Chair. I'm grateful to Mr. Rollins for the answers actually on Technology One system. I'm conscious, although it's not referred to in the papers, so forgive me if this is out of order, but we are also at the moment introducing another new IT system, this time in the case of planning. And I know it's not Councillor Melrose's responsibility at the moment because you've moved on, but I just wonder if the committee could have some reassurance that the lessons learned from the post-implementation challenges of Technology One have been incorporated into the new planning IT system project as well. I know you've spoken in the past about a community practice being incorporated there.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. And yes, I'm passing it over. It's in the middle at the moment of this planning system. So yes, when the project started, the project manager did look at lessons learned of other key, I'd say, critical system implementations, and about where we can use the lessons learned into the planning of itself. So, you know, I'll use a simple, you know, there's procurement, you procure a system, but have people factored in that you could be challenged, and if that challenge happens, have you planned that plan B? So that has been factored in, and the planning system highlight report gets reported to the change board every 2 months, which myself and Councillor Chilvers sits on. So that's where we ask to raise any issues there, but we do say if there's anything in the meantime, just to contact us if there is blockers to unblock the system implementation.
I'm grateful for that. Forgive me, I'm not quite sure what the date for the new system is on planning, when that's coming in.
I will get the latest high-level report and plan. Just give me a couple of minutes, but I will circulate it to the committee so you can have it. But I don't want to give a date on top of my head.
Okay, thanks. I wonder, Chair, if I could also follow up on an answer to one of my questions asked before the meeting, because I was concerned in the ASET's report that reference was made to LGR, and although it's perfectly right that reference was made to LGR in there, don't get me wrong, but there was management comments about constitution review, and it's probably now 4, maybe 5 months since we all completed some sort of self-assessment questionnaire, and I gather from the answer that Mr. Leach has provided that that will now be coming to February audit and standards. Is that correct? And that, I'm highly conscious that as much as the finance area has struggled sometimes with having an appropriate number of personnel in there with the workload that it's got, so likewise Democratic Services has as well, and sometimes stuff happens that adds to that workload. So yes, it's right that we deal with the local boundary review requested that's coming from for Lapworth and Rowington parish councils. We have to do that, statutory responsibility, but the amount of work that's involved is significant, particularly at a critical time of year as we approach budget setting. And I'm mindful of the fact that there was also another demand on democratic services arising out of the complaint that this committee heard about at one of its previous meetings. And now, actually, Mr. Leach isn't here to answer that, but maybe there's no question here, but I am concerned that this is being delayed again, and the extent to which dealing with that complaint had a knock-on effect because of the amount of time and energy that it consumed from democratic services. I don't know whether, if I may, the leader wants to comment.
Yeah, delays are not great. In terms of the constitution, that was our consultants that we had procured to give advice on them, that the delays from that, not from the complaint. There is a separate, if that changes to the constitution, there's a separate paper coming in terms of dealing with complaints to councillors, which again should be coming, yes, and apologies for that. You know that in that sense, the huge work pressures in that area do contribute to that. So yes, that's true.
Were there any other questions from the committee at all? Oh, Councillor Witness, after you.
Going back to Councillor Syson's question about staffing, Mr. Rollins said that there was enough staff to meet statutory deadlines. Does that mean that there's not enough staff to meet things other than statutory deadlines?
I guess ultimately there will be competing priorities. What we'll try and do in the first instance is meet statutory deadlines. That, depending on workload, could present challenges if there is a number of competing priorities. So what we need to do through the forward planning, what we typically try and do, is ensure that the forward plan is as smooth as possible, so we don't have lots of intense periods of workload and then fallow periods. So we try and make sure the work outside of the statutory stuff that myself and my team do can be met. That can be challenging, as you'll see through the Cabinet agenda that is on next week. There are quite a lot of reports on there, and that is a pressure that we are feeling. In terms of the additional resource from my team, what Stephen has, that will have a benefit to the wider team. So because they are working in capital. That allows our capital and treasury accountant to prioritise other elements of work. So we're already seeing that benefit outside of the statement of accounts work. We've seen that through the Treasury report that was presented I believe that was presented in September to Cabinet, for the first time in a number of years, and will enable the Treasury Management Strategy report to come alongside the budget in February for the first time, rather than in March. So while I stated that the statutory deadlines are the priority, the additional resource we've got will also have a benefit across the organisation. It's just, yeah, it's very difficult to gauge whether that will be sufficient or not at this stage, because we don't know what level of work is involved in things such as the example used here was LGR. But at the moment, we are confident that we do have enough resource.
Just to say to assets, thank you. I can't find the exact reference now, but I think somewhere you did more or less say that the Audit and Standards Committee was doing as it should do, from having looked at our minutes.
Yeah, I think within the governance area of value for money, we look at a range of areas, which includes effectiveness of audit committee. I guess we've not reported a weakness in that area, which is probably about as positive as auditors ever get. But yes, we have looked at the effectiveness of the committee and didn't have any issues to raise there.
Were there any other questions at all on this item? No, I suppose just a couple from me. So I think to Councillor Chilwell's point, as you said, you know, the long and winding road that leads to your door, Mr. Rollins. A Beatles joke there, 1970. But anyway, in terms of doing that, so in terms of the LGR that you spoke about, and Mr. Reid, thank you for your comments there as well. In your work with other councils, what's been the impact of LGR on those councils, and I suppose what lessons could we learn from our district in terms of what other experiences that you're working through with other councils at the moment?
Yeah, I think for the councils we deal with, this is quite early days. So at the moment we're flagging this in the reporting that we're doing. It's an area that councils need to consider in terms of the impact on governance, financial sustainability. I guess it's probably a bit too early for us to say we've got real evidence or knowledge about how councils are responding at the moment, but that's something I expect we'll start to gather over the coming months. So I think that is something we could certainly look to share with the committee in due course, but it is early days at the moment. But yeah, it's certainly something I can ensure we sort of pull back, and if there's any feedback available, we can provide it.
I feel I need to bring up my previous work experience of having to merge 6 councils together. So as you said, it is early days. I feel once a decision is made, you start to look at the systems you have. So each council is going to have a finance system. Each council is probably going to have a HR system. Each council is going to have their own different policies, and it's sort of around that. Some will be inherited, so on vesting day is what called the new council day, whenever that will be. I don't want to start the argument here. You might, let's say, I'm going to use the example of Buckinghamshire. There was several different financial systems that ran out on certain dates, so they had to sort of combine all the information together, harmonise it, and pick which system to pick. There might be decisions on that prior, but obviously they'll have to go through the Procurement Act, so I don't want to make stipulations. But there will be a bit of time you try and harmonise before vesting day, and there will be others where there'll be several systems going on for maybe 6 months, a year after vesting day, because the council worker is going to have to try and harmonise all that data, cleanse the data, and put it into the systems. Some will be easier than others. You know, there might be all the councils use the same system. That's easier to deal with. But if you're talking 6, 7 systems, it's going to take time. So I could see some areas, it might not be here, but other areas where they might be working off different financial systems for a little while after vesting day.
No, thank you. I think my question, and I do really appreciate that, I think my question is more in terms of from the external auditors, in terms of the challenges there, in terms of how you're going to be working with the council, because obviously when LGR, if it does come, and it does arrive, in terms of how, from an external audit point of view, you're going to manage that process through, because that time then, from an officer point of view, you're then going to have different priorities that are going to shift from actual production of annual accounts. So I suppose it was more in terms of, from Zet's point of view, in terms of how they would manage that process through, because if it is going to go there on the risk register, as I imagine it would have to, from a corporate point of view, how you would manage that process therein.
Yeah, I think just to add on that, so as I say, it is early days. I think the challenge we've got in local government is the fact that a lot of these bodies that are preparing for local government reorganisation also haven't had audited accounts for a number of years and have got disclaimed audit opinions. So this is an unprecedented situation, really. I mean, we have got experience of auditing other bodies that have merged in other parts of the public sector, so that is probably something I can go away and just think, you know, are there any lessons there we can draw on? And I think it is something, as I say, that we'll probably start to gather more information on as things progress. So I think at this stage, probably nothing definitive to feedback, but I think it's, thanks for flagging it, because it's certainly something we can start to look at and think about any messages we can feed back to the committee.
Thank you very much. Were there any other comments at all from anyone? No? Okay. I am happy to propose from the chair, seconded by Councillor Richard Dixon. Thank you very much, Speaker. All those in favour of the report? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Reid, as well, for your time there. So item 6 is the Audit Standards Committee Work Programme. Ms. Brown, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So the work programme is being proposed as set out. The most recent work programme is attached as Appendix 1 to report. It has been flagged that the report actually states that it is the work programme for 2023-24. It should be 2024-25. In light of a pre-meeting question from Councillor Richard Dixon, members may wish to add a review of the recovery plan to the work programme for February 2026. And also in light of the discussions you've just had on local government reorganisation, you may wish to ask ZETS to come back in the new year to provide an update. If you do wish to make these additions to the work programme, that will need to be voted on. So if you want to propose them and vote on them, if you have any questions or anything else that you'd like to add or change, just let me know.
Members, are there any? Yeah, Richard. Sorry, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to explain why I'm really keen that this committee does consider the business continuity review, not least because I think it's possibly a statutory responsibility, but certainly it's good governance. It is still whether it's as a result of some sort of cyber attack or some other failure of systems, that we look at what procedures we've got in place. That's the reason for making sure that we review it in February.
In terms of the work programme, we will need the statement of accounts on there for the 25th of February to meet the audit backstop. So that'll be one that I can feed through to get put onto the work programme. Thought best say that while that's here.
Was there anything else at all? No? Okay, so are members happy in terms of what they're going to add on? Yeah, everyone's happy with that? The 3 things, everyone happy with that? Yeah? Yeah, okay. Do you want me to vote on it? Yeah, I'm happy to propose from Chair, seconded by, thank you very much, Councillor Brown. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So item 7 is public and press. So I'm going to propose to exclude the public and press for the reasons set out on the agenda. To see it resolved that under Section 10A of the Local Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following items by reason of likely disclosure of exempt information within paragraphs 1, 2, 3 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, following the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order 26. Happy to propose that from the Chair, seconded by Councillor Falk. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Hands in the air. Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.